What is the one favor that CM Punk is going to ask of Paul Heyman? Well, to put all the pieces together, let's go all the way back a full year.
Roman Reigns, I acknowledge you.
And his first appearance back on SmackDown in December of 2023, he acknowledged Roman Reigns, but he did say, don't forget who the OG Paul Heyman guy is. And he was my wise man first.
That he was my wise man first.
Now, a year ago, CM Punk was not injured and very much spearheaded to go off to fight Seth Rollins at WrestleMania 40. Even on that episode of SmackDown, you had CM Punk go backstage and he saw the door sign for the Bloodline, but he didn't go in. When you think back to CM Punk making that return, he laid it out for the entire locker room. It was all about going to main event WrestleMania. And again, at the time, the plans were already kind of in place for him versus Seth, but you could see some seeds being planted already there with the curiosity of Paul Heyman, CM Punk, and Roman Reigns. But we didn't see anything else beyond that. And obviously CM Punk got injured and he went off to have an extended feud with Drew McIntyre that culminated at Hell in a Cell. But the rumblings of that favor all started back in June of 2024 when Punk appeared on SmackDown once again and the wise man Paul Heyman came to the ring. That segment on SmackDown when it happened was one of my most favorite moments of the year. It was great just to have Paul Heyman and CM Punk in the ring together face to face. And at that time, you had Paul Heyman in the middle of the entire Bloodline story arc with Solo Sikoa running shop over everybody and Roman Reigns nowhere to be seen since WrestleMania 40. During that segment on SmackDown, the new Bloodline confronts CM Punk. Paul Heyman is asking for his help from his friend. CM Punk says to Paul Heyman,
Paul, what's the favor you wanted to ask of me?
And as we know, Paul Heyman says,
take me with you?
Punk doesn't say yes, but in that moment, he's all set to fight off this version of the Bloodline to keep him away from his friend. Now after that, we didn't get anything from Paul Heyman, CM Punk, Bloodline related for a while. Punk went back, continued his feud with Drew McIntyre, and it felt kind of like a one-off thing. But we know with WWE, and especially with the Bloodline story, it's a saga, and they love planting little seeds all along the way. You got those little breadcrumbs for you. Now, the week after that segment of Paul Heyman, CM Punk on SmackDown, Solo and his Bloodline finally took out Paul Heyman, putting him through a table at Madison Square Garden. It was a massive moment. The promo segment between Paul Heyman and Solo, where Paul Heyman says, "Not my trouble," got a massive ovation and pop, and it resulted in Paul Heyman getting taken out, removed as the wise man for the Bloodline, and we didn't see Paul Heyman for quite some time. During all of this, remember, Roman Reigns had not returned. He had not answered the calls of Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman was under the thumb, so to speak, of Solo Sikoa and the Bloodline, fearing for his life. And within the story, it seems like Roman Reigns never reached out to Paul Heyman even after he was taken out and put through a table. It took a lot longer for Roman Reigns to finally show up, which happened at SummerSlam. And even after Roman's return, you remember that we never had Roman Reigns talk about getting in touch with the wise man, leaving a lot of us to wonder, what is the relationship now between Roman and Paul Heyman? And we're still wondering today, even after War Games. Does Paul Heyman resent Roman Reigns? Is he angry and bitter at him? Is Paul Heyman 2 steps ahead of Roman Reigns and what the big plan is going to be? As the War Games team for the Bloodline was reuniting and coming back together, you had the moment on SmackDown where Roman Reigns was in the back, he picks up his phone, and he tries to call his wise man. And as we know, the number you have dialed is not in service. Paul Heyman couldn't be reached by Roman Reigns. Now remember, Paul Heyman has the dedicated Roman Reigns phone, right? Call Roman Reigns. He's always got that phone. He's got the direct line communication. And so in theory, Roman Reigns is trying to call Paul Heyman through that phone line, but it was disconnected. Now we don't know why. Is it the games of The Rock? Was it the Bloodline disconnecting his phone, going into his service provider? He went into AT&T and in Verizon, and he was just, and Solo was like, turn this man's phone off, please. And he threatens him with a spike, and they did it. We don't know. But what we do know is there was still no communication between Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman all the way up until Paul Heyman's return on SmackDown, where he introduced CM Punk as the 5th member for War Games. And there's a lot of speculation in that moment, in that segment on SmackDown, with how Paul Heyman was dressing. He was dressed just like Solo Sikoa. So a lot of doubt, a lot of questions about, Is Paul Heyman going to turn on Roman Reigns at War Games? Is The Rock going to show up? And Paul Heyman going to be siding with the final boss? Will Paul Heyman walk out with CM Punk at the end of War Games, turning his back on the Bloodline and Roman Reigns? And during that moment, when Punk made the return on SmackDown, Paul Heyman in the middle, Roman and Punk looking at each other, the two of them talking a little bit, and CM Punk saying he's here for Paul. He's here for his friend. It wasn't about, for CM Punk at least, it's not about the Bloodline Roman Reigns. It's about his friend Paul Heyman. The favor that Paul Heyman has asked for was bringing in CM Punk. But while those two are very tight, it's a give and take. Paul Heyman asked for the favor, so CM Punk came in and decided to help Paul Heyman out for War Games so they could defeat the bigger problem of the new Bloodline with Solo Sikoa. Now, before War Games, we had the very dramatic cinematic moment, the sit down with Roman Reigns, Paul Heyman, and CM Punk. This was all designed to get Roman and Punk on the same page before War Games. But the interesting piece of this is the language, the wording they used in this segment, where you have Punk sitting there saying that he is here for his friend. And Punk, I believe, says this twice. I'm not here for you, Roman. I'm here for my friend.
I'm here for Paul.
Now, there's ways to read into that. That's the fun of this, is that you can take this just as the literal context of, well, he's just here to help out his friend Paul Heyman. Heyman asked for a favor. I'm helping him out by doing this. But you can look at it a little differently, with CM Punk specifically saying on the promo segment on SmackDown, the cinematic sit down moment, I'm here for him. I'm here for Paul. I'm here for my friend. Does he mean I'm here to take him? I'm here to take Paul Heyman away from all of this. I'm here to get him and take him out of all of this craziness of the Bloodline, so he will come back to me and be my wise man. That could work because of what we saw back in June, where Paul Heyman asked CM Punk, take me with you. So if we connect those little dots there, it is possible that that is what CM Punk is talking about. Paul wants him to take him with him. CM Punk says, I'm here for my friend. Now, before we go any further, I will say I love the tension and the moments during that cinematic segment between Roman Reigns and CM Punk. It made me want to see the match. It made me want to see CM Punk versus Roman one-on-one, maybe for the custody of the wise man, but having that X factor of Paul Heyman stuck in the middle. Who will he side with? The tension, the promos that you could pull off with these two, it felt very natural, and amazing chemistry made me just want to see this match happen, and it is possible we are still going to get it. We'll talk about that in a minute. Now, at War Games, we had a lot of really great moments even before Roman and Punk got into the ring, or rings. You had CM Punk come out immediately and just start chirping at the rest of the Bloodline. Paul Heyman did not come out with CM Punk, nor did he come out with the Bloodline and Roman Reigns at the beginning, which seems a little odd because if Paul Heyman was truly on the side of Roman Reigns, his tribal chief, why wouldn't Paul Heyman come out as normal? So with them in the shark cage, you had the moment where it was Sammy, Punk, and Roman in the cage, ready to come in. Punk tries to go out and Roman Reigns blocks him. Sammy goes out and gets into the match. You get the next moment where these two, where Roman was gonna go in and then Punk just goes right past Roman Reigns and just says, I'm going for this. So the disrespect there for Roman Reigns is all at play. He doesn't like Punk. And when you look at that cinematic segment, Roman was ticked off already because Punk was late. Punk does it his way. He shows up when he wants to show up. He enters War Games when he wanted to enter War Games. He's not listening to what the tribal chief wants. Everybody else is, because you still have Sammy, Jimmy, Jay, when they were in War Games and leading up to it, they're still all kind of doing the bidding of Roman Reigns. They're running around trying to recruit people. They're fighting off Solo and the Bloodline, and Roman Reigns isn't doing much of anything. He's still feeling like he is in charge. CM Punk doesn't play to that game. Now, during War Games, I really love the moments that you had between Punk and Roman, but you did get at the beginning of that tension between the two of them. You had Paul Heyman come down and he was in the middle. He was in between both of them. And you got to look at it in the context of how things are shot and setting everything and blocking everything for that scene. Roman and Punk face to face, Paul Heyman right in the middle, but behind the cage on the outside, looking in for both of them, pleading with them to get on the same page. It's War Games, you have to do this. So they basically just say, fine, we're allies for now. And then during the match, again, I really liked how you had both of them eventually help each other out. Roman does not lift up CM Punk in the beginning, but he does for the rest of his team. Then you had CM Punk pull Roman Reigns at the very last second to get him off of the table before Bronson Reed could hit a tsunami. The miscommunications throughout the match, but then getting on the same page to try and defeat the Bloodline was awesome. But then of course, like all these Bloodline moments and segments and matches, we're all waiting to see what's going to be the next thing. And while we didn't get The Rock and we didn't get a big turn, we still got some interesting moments at the very end of War Games. As they exit the cage, CM Punk exits first to go up to Paul Heyman and gives him a hug. And then you get this commentary between them.
When I need the favor, I'm gonna come ask.
When it's time, CM Punk is going to ask for that favor, and Paul Heyman acknowledges that.
It's yours.
Roman Reigns then exits the cage and simply looks at Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman is acknowledging his tribal chief, but he comes over and just kind of schmoozes his face, just touches it. Now, you can interpret that a lot of different ways, but it's possible that Roman sees what's going on. He's not stupid. Roman is the king of manipulation, always watching his back, trying to make sure that he's ahead of everybody else. He spent years manipulating his family to be the very top, to be the tribal chief. It's possible that in that moment, as he's kind of just touching Paul Heyman's face and walking off, that Roman understands that Paul might be gone, or that he knows what Paul Heyman is doing, or at least he thinks he does. It could be that Roman is thanking Paul for doing the right thing of getting Punk here, and it's what they needed in order to win at War Games. But it could also be that Roman understands that Paul Heyman is up to something. And it's almost like that mafia kiss goodbye, and he's gonna blast him at the end. So looking long term, there are some possibilities with all of this. Roman Reigns is huge babyface right now, and it does feel like the natural course of things is to be a match between Roman and The Rock at WrestleMania 41. But I think WWE is putting a lot of different pieces in place, almost as a backup, almost as a break glass situation, in case The Rock is not available for Mania. Cody's a possibility, Solo, Jacob Fatu, CM Punk. A lot of directions for Roman Reigns. Roman could turn on Paul Heyman at the end of all of this. Could be leading up to this year's WrestleMania, could be saved until next year. We don't know. Roman's a big babyface right now, but he hasn't changed, and Roman has said that. Nothing's changed about Roman Reigns. Roman in character might feel that he needs to get rid of, ditch, remove Paul Heyman before Paul Heyman turns on him and sides with CM Punk. If they did that, if they are trying to tease Punk versus Roman for, let's say, WrestleMania 41 in Vegas, there is a clear and easy story to tell right there. Paul Heyman having to choose could have Roman Reigns turn on Heyman, which just pushes Paul Heyman to go with CM Punk. The big question mark is going to be, what is this favor of Punk? It could be that it's about Punk taking back his wise man, being the original Paul Heyman guy. Brock Lesnar is also OG Paul Heyman guy, but it could be Punk wanting to take him back to Monday Night Raw and become his wise man and leave the bloodline. Paul Heyman would be safer, and you can always tell the story of Paul Heyman coming back to Roman Reigns in a year from now or two. CM Punk maybe needing Paul Heyman to help him to try and get to Gunther for the World Heavyweight title. Paul Heyman being the politicker, being the guy backstage pulling the strings with management and storyline, trying to get CM Punk that leverage so that he can get up to the world title scene. However, with Punk's track record right now of helping to win at War Games in the main event, beating Drew McIntyre at Hell in a Cell, kind of puts Punk in line to be one of the top contenders for the world title. Now, one thing with WWE we have to note is that with Raw coming to Netflix, there has been a ton of chatter online about the status of superstars and the draft, and that WWE is going to be very loose with how they handle superstars going from Raw and SmackDown. We're seeing that right now with Survivor Series, that all bets are off. It doesn't matter which brand you're on. It's going to be about putting on the best shows, which is great because we should be seeing CM Punk on Raw with Netflix, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, the Bloodline, Paul Heyman, and everybody in between. And then don't forget, SmackDown is also going to 3 hours. They're going to want to make these shows huge going into January and WrestleMania season. So you can still keep the conflicts between CM Punk, Heyman, and Roman Reigns going strong on Monday Night Raw. Another option for a favor of Punk could be that Paul Heyman tries to work something out where Roman Reigns gets moved over to Monday Night Raw and Punk goes to SmackDown with Heyman, trying to get Heyman away from this whole bloodline situation. And if you did that, if you keep the main titles on the respective shows, you have another option of Cody and Punk for the WWE Championship. Right now, I am so much more curious about Punk versus Roman than I am with the assumed match of Seth versus Punk at WrestleMania. And if we go back to that favor, could be CM Punk asking Paul Heyman to work his magic to get himself a title match, maybe on the debut episode of Raw on Netflix in January. I think the X factor in all of this, it's not just Paul Heyman, it's The Rock, because it could be Rock and Roman at 41, could be Cody and Rock at 41, and Roman and Punk at WrestleMania as well. I do think it's possible that as we go towards Saturday night's main event, we maybe get the match between Solo and Roman Reigns for the Ulafala. And assuming Roman Reigns would win that clean, because he has just beaten Solo over and over again, if Roman Reigns can finally put that Ulafala back on, he could still end up being a chief without a tribe, and a chief without a wise man. Because his character may be so obsessed with trying to get back on top that he doesn't apologize to the rest of his family, and he doesn't apologize to Paul Heyman after everything. So while Roman could potentially get that Ulafala back and feel like everything is back to normal the way he wanted it, everything around him could be gone, and he could have nothing but that Ulafala. And Paul Heyman could be answering that favor by leaving with CM Punk.